Hello.
Yo!
Here it is. How are you? How
Hey,
did it go last night? Did you get a chance to work a bit more on it?
not much, but I talked to him. It's like, hey, we need to sit down again. We need to put this in order, and I'm gonna ask you like potential information that we will need to collect in for this
Nice.
event to happen. I was like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Fridays are a good time to talk about that stuff. It's really when things people are wanting things to, move forward
Right,
in
in
their
the next week.
projects and all that. So, end of the week, man, people want to have some things checked off. So,
Yep.
when you want to get things done, Fridays are a good time to get agreement. So, that's good. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Cześć
Hi,
Krzysztof. There's two
hi.
Krzysztofs in the meetup today. Krzysztof Owsiany is from Poland as well, and
Hi, Krzysztof.
but he has his muted right now. He can't. He
No,
could
I
say
think
something
he
in
didn't
Polish.
connect the audio yet.
Oh, okay. He has two things that he connects through. Uh, hmm. Okay, well, we'll wait. We always wait 5 minutes for people to gather around. I will post another
Yeah,
link
don't
to
forget to
this.
post the link to in the Slack.
Oh, the Zoom link, just in case.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
People don't know from the meetup, right?
well,
We had a lot of.
sometimes loses the link because Miro.com hide it after a specific time.
Yeah, that's right. After the meetup started, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so I'll paste it in. I want to actually create a Wardley Maps channel in the Slack, so people can discuss Wardley Maps there. So, Chris, we have a Wordly Maps channel now in the event modeling Slack group, which will help people talk about this, which is good. And let me just post that message to add people. Skip for now. General meetup is starting. Zoom is this. Okay. And that's what we have. Yeah, we had a very good guest last time on Tuesday. I'm not sure if I told you, Chris, but he had done wordly mapping and event modeling combination. It's the best use of both at a really large trading company in the United States. And it was an incredible success. The combination of the two approaches. So I'm hoping that he's going to join us here. I'm just going to see if he's online because that would be really good to hear that again from him.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Krzysztof. Jak się masz? Jest drugi Krzysztof tutaj też.
Tak.
Sorry, you're just a bit of Polish. there's two Krzysztofs from Poland
Yes,
today. This is a special treat.
and
it just happens to be my brother's name as well. Same.
Have interesting surname because Daniel is a name in Polish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daniel is name.
Well, same in English.
My uncle was actually Daniel.
Daniel. Nice.
Interesting.
Just in case they didn't get it the first time, they get it the second time. What's your name? Daniel. No, I heard you the first time. No, that's my name, Daniel. Okay, so just give it one more minute here. We'll be at starting 35 past the hour, so no one's waiting too long. Just for Chris's background, we usually go for a couple of hours, but sometimes people want to stay and chat longer, so I make myself available. Yeah, so that's good. We'll just wait. Maybe who else is here? Oh, Eugene is here. Hello, good to see Eugene.
Hey.
Mawson's here. Aryan, welcome. We got a good little crew for now. And let's see if we get any late stragglers. They'll have to catch up on the recording. So I am recording this, and I'm trying to catch up on editing everything to publish this. And there should be a nice little sequence of Wardley maps, extracts from these past 3 meetings to be able to show people how, what the thoughts are between making both of these work together. Let's start. So where we got to last time with Chris Condren was looking at doing a proper investigation into the Wardley map and getting the value chain, the blue line drawn on it, to try and connect some of the things that we want to do. And one thing that is remaining is to move some things left and right on whether they're commodities or not. So we can take a look at that. Let me just get the screen set up and I'll share it. See where we got to. On the Zoom, I'll also post a link to the Miro board. I think it's in the time tracking channel anyway. Yes, it's in the title of the time tracking channel. So if anyone has copy link, I'll just put it in the chat here just in case people want to go to that Miro board. Chat, everyone. Here's the link. And I'll go find it on my computer. Here it is. I can close this. Close this. Yurtis can be co-host.
Yes, sir.
And Krzysztof 1 can be co-host. And that's it. Okay, I think we're set up. Someone's typing. I think it's Yurtis. I can hear him.
Yeah, probably it's me.
All right, and share screen. Oh, template, yes. Right. Yeah, we should probably look at that as well, just to see. Share screen, share screen, share. Okay, so this is where we got to after 2 previous sessions. This was it 3? Maybe 2. This is where we ended up with, just so for people that weren't here last time, our application is the time tracking application, which we have an event model for, but we're sort of going backwards and seeing where all of these things could be on a Wardley map. Now, as I said, it's not organized left to right, so the placement in terms of maturity is not adjusted yet. So at the top, we identified 4 things, at least for now, as the value for the customer. Pay consultants, bill the clients, charge the correct tax, and predict cash flow so that we don't overpay people and be in a situation where we're paying people for work, but the client hasn't paid yet. However, we identified with larger circles that the more important things in our business is to pay the consultants the correct amount and to bill the clients the correct amount. So we have those as at the top. Below, we definitely have some things that are connected, what needs what. So for billing the clients, we need the support billing detailed questions, because they will have questions. That's one side of it. The other side is to actually have line items so clients understand what they're getting billed for. Let me just see. I think I got a message here. sure if that was from someone here. Nope, something else. Okay. Okay, so that also supports the other side, which is, I'm not sure, this is one of the questions we had. If there's a need that's actually addressed by something else, like the relationship of these things, is it really necessary to have this line because this one implies it? Chris seemed to think that it's necessary. I'm not sure. We can talk about this. On the other side, paying consultants, the payment status is something that's kind of shared as a need, meaning we have to see which pieces of work have been paid for by the client, and therefore we can pay the consultants so that we're not left with outstanding amounts. Cash flow reporting, consultant cash flow reporting is something we identified. And we renamed this actually for the client side as support billing questions and details. So I'm not sure if we have to revisit the consultant cash flow reporting as something else, but it does support also the predicting of the cash flow and what the consultants can expect to get paid. Time validation is something that we do inside the system that allows us to make the line items that end up on the bills and end up being as part of the stubs for payment. Time tracking and deliveries are kind of at the a lot of the nice thing about the Wardley map is that it shows the dependency graph really well of what, what is driving our system. Well, without the time and delivery tracking, we really don't have a system at all because a lot of things need that for this to work. That's an obvious statement. Recording of the time is a separate thing. So we identified these as two separate things. Tracking and the actual recording are two separate needs. I guess they can be done in using different solutions. Therefore, they have different spots on the Wardley map. And recording target manager and client management. This is the setup of adding, I guess we lumped everything, both setting up a client and a bunch of other things in here as being generically called client management. One of the things that Chris, this is really confusing because we have so many Chris's. This is an English Chris, so his real name is not Krzysztof. So the other Chris that was here last time was talking about having to go through the Wardley mapping exercise, but then reading the entire book on Wardley mapping and doing more studies, and then go back again and revisit and see the mistakes you made and correct them. So Chris is smiling because I think he knows this to be true, or maybe not. Maybe it's the opposite. But we have identified these at least as our first use of a Wardley map. And just for review for everyone that wasn't here, that these pieces that you identify here can be directly shown as a subsystem on our event model, or it can be shown, especially when it comes to the needs of the user at the top, as sections of the event model. So this is where the business can start to operate from the executive boardroom to basically anyone in the company. So it's a highly effective way to share the findings from Wardley into the effects and give actual measurements on a lot of these things to the implementation. And from Chris's comments last time for review, in the trading application, the Wardley map identified the seams and the good boundaries for where events could be used as sources and destinations. And it was critical that the business understood where those boundaries existed, and then how it was reflected in the implementation later on, so that they didn't have entirely different discussions in the boardroom than what the discussions were when they were implementing the solution. So the two are very, very complementary, and this is quite a good testimonial for both Wardley maps and event modeling, as it rescued a really large project. So any questions so far? Did I miss anything from last time that we covered with Chris?
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
I see the kind of blue lines here. If you're speaking about like this on Wardley map, do we need to have like better to have separate event model for every pass, or it's just enough to have one?
I think you can, depending on the complexity of the event model. I mean, we certainly have no problem in splitting up one event model to many, because we're quite used to the conventions and how the contracts for data tie each of the separate workflows together. But if you're new to event modeling, I would urge against that, because it's harder for new people to follow the continuity of data completeness. And instead, what you would do is you would, this is what I was suggesting last time, is that you would identify sections of the large, long sort of event model, to say that I have time tracking here. You can easily reference that here where we addressed it. Of course, the blue lines kind of allow you to follow critical data up and down through the system, especially when boundaries are crossed from one system to another. So that's where we thought these blue lines, in terms of delivering value, were going to be represented. So we're still working on exactly what that is in practice, and hopefully Chris can join at another time to maybe do at some point in the couple of weeks or months in the future, we can dive deeper into the case study for his trading system, because that's a really good example, and he can answer that kind of question about how they ended up organizing from the Wardley map to the event model, and to really go from boardroom to execution in the shortest amount of time and the greatest amount of correctness. So it's been, it's a good case study. I don't have one yet because we don't use Wardley maps with our clients. So we will be starting to use them if the conversations are at that level. Unfortunately, as a consultancy and subcontracting company, we are generally said, we're coming in from the perspective of not being business consultants. So they're telling us, this is the solution we want. How much is it going to cost? When can you have it done? All we can do is be incredibly transparent about it. And this is where event modeling shines, because there is no question about what they're paying for. And that, if it works, how does it work? There's just no question at all. So they're quite happy with that. But on the odd occasion that we have a startup or a new initiative, or just they trust our experience with so many different businesses, we're certainly open to start, working with organizations to go in from a very high level and start to define some of their competencies, technologies, whatever, and arrange them on if that should be something that they treat as a commodity, if they should do an experiment, or if they should do a custom build for many of the pieces. We can definitely take a first look at it through a Wardley map, do some finer refinement with event modeling, which will attach some costs to those decisions. And they can make at that point, they can say whether it's in scope for them to try, as their business, try to move some of these pieces from left to right for themselves. Now, the other thing that Chris said was incredibly important to talk about is that an event sourced system with an event model lowers the cost curve incredibly for everything on the left-hand side of the Wardley map. So it changes the cost curve that Wardley map exposes. So for example, if one company has this Wardley map and they have, let's say, time validation as something that that they want to push to the right because it's something they don't want to incur costs on, and they want to make it cheaper. So if they try to move this to be a commodity, let's say it's a product, let's say it's further along, and they want to make it a commodity or find a commodity, depending on whether they want to be involved in pushing it or recognize that that's the situation in the field. Event sourced and event driven architectures along with an event model make it less important to have to move something from left to right, because it changes that cost curve for the benefits. So in other words, and that we've experienced that ourselves. There's things, for example, from a standpoint of having a something that you would consider to be quite a commodity, such as a point of sale system and an inventory system. You could argue that there's a ton of components and pieces of that system that are ready off the shelf and as either products or even commodities in some cases. However, to have total control, because there were some slight differences that you'd have to make as a compromise if you didn't have that advantage, that you would say, okay, well, I guess I'll buy this off the shelf and I'll adjust my business because it doesn't give me this one field or this one capability in my invoicing. With an event-driven approach, with event modeling, you could make a case that, you know what, we're actually not going to save that much money by taking this off the shelf. We can do this as a custom piece of development, and it's not going to destroy us. So in terms of the left and right movement of these pieces on the Wardley map, a mature approach with event-driven design and a proper event map for guiding the whole development process and guiding the design, you will lower that cost greatly, so that the decision that the other company had to make is not a big problem for you. You can do it if you want, and probably should. I mean, you shouldn't have, you shouldn't be burning the cycles of your people to do things that already exist out there. But there's a gray area in between, and that's the important one. Is, where are the compromises? Yes, this does exist as a commodity, but we're going to have to change our business because it doesn't really address one small detail that we have here. And you start to really weigh whether you're going to adopt something that's a commodity, or you're going to make a custom solution for it because of that difference. It has a very different risk-reward ratio if you have an event-driven approach and this holistic blueprint. Those are the discoveries by Chris, actually, when he looked at the Wardley maps. He said that was a really important question last time, is that how did the effectiveness or usability of Wardley maps change when you were doing an event modeling blueprint for the solution and for how the workflows of the organization. And the most important thing that was identified was that the costs and the risks as you move from left to right are entirely different with an event-driven architecture and an event model. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces that we took away from the last 2 or 3 sessions that we had covering Wardley maps. And luckily, Chris was able to join the last time to give a real hands-on experience where he knows event sourcing, has worked with Event Store, is a really senior person in the community for understanding CQRS and event sourcing and all these types of systems, not just for non like startups or something that doesn't have a lot of scale, but also the high scalability, large implementation, multi-billion-dollar businesses and thousands of transactions per second. What some of the systems that he's worked on in an event-driven architecture have been magnetic resonance imaging and other things in the biofield, and so he's basically dealing with millions of transactions per second in these systems, and he's been able to apply that successfully in that situation, as well as startups and other things. So it was really good to have him join last time and give some of those some of that perspective also into Wardley maps, because that's kind of rare to have a person that has that much experience with Event Store, event sourcing, and CQRS, that also has used in those organizations Wardley maps, and not just like to show the board about what it is, but to actually use Wardley maps with them and to see it all the way through to implementation. That's very rare to see that. So it was really good to have him last time. And I'm not sure. Maybe we can use Chris to review our map and see if we actually got the right things, because, you know, Chris said that we should probably review these, and that these may not actually be the best points to have on this map. So maybe Chris can give us sort of a look into what he would do for a client that came in and say, look, we're building this time tracking system. We have this Wardley map that we think we want to use. We need to move some of these things left and right. You know, maybe we can see what questions Chris would ask us if we're the company and he's coming in to help us with our business. What do you think, Chris?
I wouldn't ask you any questions.
No?
Well,
if you can just give us answers, that's even better.
No. What I wanted to say is that the map that you have presented is actually pretty good, and I think it represents everything what you have talked about quite accurately. So the one thing that I have learned about mapping, and it took me many failed exercises, is that there is no such thing as a perfect map. And the map represents your perception of the reality. So what you have created is how you understand this particular domain. And if you want to make this map more precise or more accurately describing reality, there is no other way than to actually build the system. All right, so given that you have done this initial exercise of drawing a map, identifying components, highlighting dependencies between them, and translating them into the event domain flow, I think that's a very good exercise, but it's already done.
Well, one of the things that we didn't do yet, and I'm not sure, maybe this is what you can guide us on, is to identify somehow or organize the placement of the dots, how far on the left and how far on the right.
Okay, okay, we can do that.